with critics, when you talk about this type of thing, they'll say, Obamacare, in general, is just another example of a big government promise that has fallen short. Hillary Clinton, though, is promising, if anything, to double down on the president's big government policies. So we have former Bush 41 Chief of Staff and former Republican Governor John Sununu as our next guest today. Welcome, sir. We appreciate it. And
how are you?
I'm doing all right, all things considered. That I assume this type of thing worries you.
Well, I'm worried if she succeeds in getting elected, I'm worried she'll keep her promises. She'll create chaos in terms of spending. What she's promised alone on college loans and increased support for public health care will bankrupt America.
Bankrupt America. So, as you know, we're a business network. You're worried about basically about a big-time debt crisis emerging, something like we went through in '08. Is that what you're worried about?
I think it'll get to the point where we will have lost credibility in the financial markets with the size of our debt. And once that starts happening, interest rates go up. And when you add interest rates, which right now have been carried by Obama at an extremely low level,
right.
It compounds itself. It spirals out of hand.
I think we found, maybe you disagree, but you tell me, that those arguments politically sometimes don't work in short-term elections, saying that at some point this will happen, just because people live so much in the here and now, they say, oh, let me not worry about that now because it's not affecting me now. How do you combat that if you're Donald Trump? Yeah.
You're right. The biggest problem Mrs. Clinton has is not the awareness of the disaster of her economic policy, but the fact that everybody thinks she's a liar. And
right.
That will continue to be the biggest issue. And a liar in the White House, in the long run, is not going to be acceptable to the American public.
Okay, so think about this for a second. Joe Trippi, I don't know if you heard, he was just on, and his basic argument at the end of that conversation was that it's incumbent on Donald Trump to convince people that he's fit to be president. He thinks that's the most important thing for Trump to do. Obviously, he's a Democratic strategist, as opposed to going after Hillary Clinton over and over on things like what you mentioned, her honest and trustworthy issues. What do you make of that?
He's right.
Okay,
he's right, but you need both. And the surrogates will keep pounding Mrs. Clinton on her dishonesty and the pay-for-play, which comes out of the Clinton Foundation versus the State Department. But Trump himself has to establish himself as a credible president. I think that's beginning to happen. I think his hiring of Kellyanne Conway has made a big difference. I think she's going to have him focusing on issues. And I think you're going to see a very interesting 2.5 months of a campaign starting Labor Day when the kids get back to school.
Well, that is the key. 2.5 months of a campaign. Raising the obvious question is, does he have enough time to come back, trailing, if the polls are right, by 5 or 6 points in the average of the polls, and looking pretty, trailing in a number of key states, as we talked about.
The fact is he could come back in one debate. If he establishes himself as a credible president in the first debate, all these old polls, all this old set of arguments, all this old perception goes away. And so for Donald Trump, the most important thing is going to be the 3 debates and coming into them with a credible plan and a personality projection in those debates that makes America think he can and should be president.
Because with this ad campaign, as I said,
he will probably do that well.
It's fairly effective. A lot of people would tell you on an economic argument basis that he's rolling out today, just rolling it out. But all 9 of those states, all 9, he's currently trailing in. And he needs to win a lot of them, right?
He has to win, in my opinion, almost all of them. But the point is, this thing changes dramatically when he changes what America's perception of him is as a potential president. And all it takes is a couple of good weeks of controlled personality, so to speak, and one good debate.
Hofstra University on the 26th, right, of September. So that'll be the first one.
I think that's right.
There it is. Governor, thank you. Good to see you. Good insight, as always.
Thank you. Good to be on.